Well, hello everybody. Jeff Cowan here from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, the person that's trained more successful service advisors than anybody else on the planet. It's a fact. Look it up. Well, I'm back today with a brand new edition of my podcast entitled Write Service, Write Your Own Paycheck, the path to making over $100,000 a year when writing service in the automotive industry. And at this very recording, just over 21% of you, 20% of you are doing just that, making over $100,000 a year. But like I always say, that means that nearly 80% of you are not. So what are we going to do about that? Well, like I always recommend, I recommend you keep watching this podcast. Go back and watch all my other podcasts. Go to my website, automotiveservicetraining.com, automotiveservicetraining.com, because once you get there, you'll find all the tools, techniques, processes, word tracks, and everything else that you need to become an elite service advisor. And you know, here's what people tell me. Once they go to my website and they start watching all my podcasts and they start doing what I teach, they say becoming an elite service advisor. An elite service advisor is one of the easiest things they've ever done. Now, I'm coming to you today with a podcast that I know you're going to love, and here's what it's based off of. I get people of all ages come up to me and say, Jeff, what's the benefits of writing service in the automotive industry? If I was going to go into that industry, what's the benefits to doing that? And there's a very long list. But there's three I always like to focus on. And as a matter of fact, I've taken these three that I'm going to talk about today and I've put it into my workshops. We actually talk about this in our workshops, especially if we have a lot of new service advisors in there. And I just came back off the road to kind of even sweeten it up a little bit. I just came off the road where I did a lot of workshops. And it was amazing how many people this time around, and I mean people, we're talking business owners, dealer principals, fixed operations directors, general managers, sales managers, service managers, and advisors themselves that came up to me and said, you know, when you talked about the benefits and what could happen if you wrote service and maximize the opportunity, you should turn that into a podcast. That message is something everybody should hear, and I agreed with them. So here you go. So even though there's a long list of benefits to being a service advisor, here's the three main ones that people like to focus on. They're hours, that's a good benefit, the life balance, and of course, the income that can be made. So let's take a look at each one of them. Let's talk about hours. Now, depending on where you want to write service, you can select the hours. You really can, depending on where you want to write service. I mean, there's service centers out there that are open every night. You know, some of them are open until 9, 10, 11 o'clock, some parts of the country even until midnight. So if your lifestyle dictates that it's better for you to work later in the day and in the evening hours, the night hours, you can do that. If you want to work only days and no nights, depending on where you choose to work, you can do that. If you want to work weekends, because maybe your lifestyle dictates that it's best if 2 of your days that you work are on the weekends, so you can have 2 days off during the week, you can do that. If you don't want to work any weekends, you can do that. So when it comes to the hours and what you want to work, really writing service, if you depending on where you write it at, you can select the hours that best fits you, your family, your lifestyle, and the like. So I think hours is a big benefit. Life balance, we talked about that. Now life balance today in the popular terms is and every generation does this. They try to come up with some concoction on how they don't have to work nearly as much because they don't care about money and they don't care about doing all materialistic things. They just want to have this utopian life. And what happens is they all wake up and realize that sitting at home on the couch while their friends are in Hawaii and driving brand new cars and living in big houses, sitting on the couch at home isn't as fun as that. So they all eventually go to work. So what is really life balance, if you want to use that term? I've always thought life balance came from the power that you can have in your life to dictate your terms. So when we're talking about service advising, we're really talking about selling. And so here's the cold hard facts. If you're somebody that can produce big numbers, sell lots of product, hold on to gross profit, lead the board, if you will have immense power. Every sales position and or service advising position I ever had, I was almost always number one. And the reason I was is because I worked smarter and harder than everybody else. The reason I liked being number one was not for all the notoriety that got me and the awards and the statues and the bonuses and all that stuff. I liked it because of the power that it gave me. If you're a top producer, and you don't have to be number one, but if you're in the top 10, maybe 15%, but certainly number one, you can produce, you can put a lot of numbers on the board and stuff, you have immense power. Why? Because you've proven that you can do what you say you can do and the business won't want to lose you. Now, when I had this power, I never abused it. But I was fully aware that if I came in 2 days before my sister got married in Europe, that I could walk in and say, hey, I know this is last minute, but I need the next week off because my sister's getting married, and nobody would say anything. As long as you don't abuse it, nobody says anything. So what I learned is by being a top producer, which is what I train people to do, by being a top producer, I could essentially set my own hours. I could come and go when I wanted to. I could work weekends, not weekends, evenings, not evenings. I could pretty much do whatever I wanted because I'd proven to the company I can get you the numbers. Now again, I never abused it. As a matter of fact, I probably worked more than anybody else, but I knew that in the back of my mind, if I wanted to go to a concert, if I wanted a weekend off, if there's a big event coming up or whatever, I could do it because I knew that I had proven to everybody that I could get the numbers. Make sense? So when it comes to life balance, true life balance comes out of having power. No matter what it is you're doing, you got to be the best. If you're the best, you'll have the life balance you're looking for. You'll be able to come and go when you choose, do what you want to do for as long as you want to do it, when you want to do it, and spend as much money and time on it as you can. That's, to me, is life balance, is when you accomplish those things. And I would say 99.9% of the people, including myself, that have that kind of power can do what they want, when they want, how long they want, wherever they want. They do it because they're top producers. That's where you get that from. Now the third thing here on the list is income, but before I get there, we talk about the income. Now you're going to want to hang around, okay, so I'm going to do an ad here real quick, but you're going to hang around because what I got to share with you is the real eye-opener. This is the one that takes everybody and just takes their breath away when I talk about it in class. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about Pro Talk. And in every one of these podcasts, they tell you about how we have this type of training and that type of training and whatever, but I want to do it a little bit different this time. I want to share with you just how popular and effective our training is. So I had the team get together, and I had them put together some numbers starting January 1st, 2022, all the way through April 15th, 2022. So all these stats I'm going to give you, this is what's happened here at Pro Talk from January 1st, 2022 through April 15th, 2022. Check this out. Did you know in that time frame that over 500 people attended a live workshop? Were sitting in a chair in front of me as I did the workshop. Over 500 people have come through my live workshops in person. Over 500. And we expect that number to at least quadruple over the next year, over 500. You say, well, what's the buzz about the workshops? Call us at 1-800-248-2931. We'll share with you why so many people not only come to the workshops, but come back to the workshops. Over 500 through the 15th of this year alone. Did you know this? Check this out. Since January 1st, 375 rooftops have started using my new online training program. Now, I've always had an online training program, but I revamped it, invested over $200,000 in it and the like. And since January 1st, 375 rooftops have started using that new stuff. You say, what's the buzz? Causes. Well, call us. We'll tell you what it is, what we're talking about. Call us. We'll tell you what we're talking about. Check this number out. Nearly 4,000 people, individuals. Actually, we know it's a little bit more than that, but we'll just say 4,000. 4,000 people have started using my online training since January 1st. 4,000 people. Do you know that since January 1st through April 15th, my trainers have visited over 80 service drives, standing side by side, coaching, critiquing, role-playing, and even writing service or managing or doing whatever it is they're teaching the person to do. We've been in over 80 of them just through April 15th. Did you know, check this out, that over 480 people have been trained by us live on the drive? Again, if we're doing management training, we're sitting right beside the management manager, showing them how to do it. Fixed operations training, whether it's BDC, whether it's our Express Lubes services or the service advisors, 85% of the time we're in a dealership or a service drive. We're standing side by side with people, coaching, critiquing, role-playing, and doing the job. Over 480 people just through April 15th. Do you know that since January 1st through April 15th, 210 managers have been trained by us live? 210. Now, if you're wondering what all the and these numbers here, to be conservative, we think they're going. We're sure they're going to quadruple by the end of the year, and I actually think they're going to be double quadruple, whatever that would be, right? Because of some of the things I've got coming up. So if you wonder, what it is our training does and how popular it is, this is how popular it is. If you're wondering why so many people use it, whether it's the workshop, the in-store training, or the online training, call us at 1-800-248-2931, 1-800-248-2931, and we will tell you why it's popular. We will tell you why so many people use our training over and over and over and the type of results they get. Or you can go to automotiveservicetraining.com, automotiveservicetraining.com, get the information there, or dial me direct at 317-506-1003, 317-506-1003, and we will tell you why. Over 500 people have attended one of my live workshops from January 1st to April 15th, why 375 rooftops have signed on using my new online training program, over 4,000 people using my online training program since January 1st of this year, over 80 service drives through April 15th, 480 people we trained live, 210 managers. I mean, come on. Nobody can beat those numbers. We are the best. We get it done, and we will get it done for you. All you have to do is reach out. Back to the podcast message. Now, this podcast, you're going to remember, it's what's the benefits of being a service advisor. And although there's a really long list, there's 3 things I like to focus on because this is what people are most concerned about. I told you it was hours, life balance, and income. Before I did my little ad, we talked about the hours, we talked about life balance, and what my opinion of life balance is. Now let's talk about the income. Now, let me share with you a story that happened here recently at one of my live workshops. And this is based off of this. I've done research, and I found out that the average person from any walk of life at any age, the average person that leaves the job and comes into writing service, they've never done it before, leaves the job and comes into writing service, the job they left, on average, they were making $40,000. So this was exactly the case in a recent workshop. There was a young lady sitting there. I found out that she was 24 years old, and she left a job where she was a hostess at a restaurant there in the town we were in, and she had made $40,000 her best year. So here's what I explained to her and the rest of the class, as they do every class, what's at stake by becoming a great service advisor. So here's what I told her. Now, I said, you were making $40,000 a year, is that right? Yeah, okay. Now, $40,000 a year, it may not have been easy, but I'm assuming you made your rent payment? Yeah. You made your car payment? Yeah. I mean, again, things may not have been easy, but you ate, your kids were fed, and all that stuff. So $40,000, you know you can make it off. That's a little tight, a little tough, but you know you can make it off that, right? Okay, so let me share with you the opportunity you're facing right now by sitting in that chair. We just put you in a chair where the average person in the room is making $75,000 a year. $75,000 a year. So if you go from making $40,000 like you did last year as a hostess in a restaurant to making $75,000, we've nearly doubled your income. We've shown you how and given you the opportunity to make $35,000 more a year. Now here's what I want you to do with that extra $35,000. Since we've already established that you can make it, you were doing fine off the $40,000, I want you to take half that $35,000, $17,500. I want you to take half that $35,000, $17,500, and spend it any way you want every year for the next 10 years. It's yours to do. You want a nicer house, you want a nicer car, you want to go on a bigger vacation, whatever you do, that $17,500 is yours, because the other half, the other $17,500, I want you to put in the bank every year for 10 years. And if you get a good accountant at the end of 10 years, you should be able to double that $175,000, because that's what you put in the bank, and make it $350,000. $350,000. And I asked her, you're 24 years old, how many people do you know right now that are 34 years old that over the last 10 years have had $17,500 to spend any way they want and have $350,000 sitting in the bank clear and free? How many people do you know that are in that situation? Because that's the opportunity you have. Now, I said that, and just like in every other class, in this particular one, a guy who was 45 years old raised his hand and said, shoot, 10 years from now I'll be 55. I don't know many 55-year-olds that can make the comment that they've had $17,500 a year to spend and have $350,000 clear in the bank. But I told him, let's not stop there. Because if you came in at $40,000 and you're just average at $75,000, that's the picture. But what happens if you become an elite advisor and you join that over 20% club that's making $100,000 a year? Let's look at those numbers, because this is the real opportunity. This is the real opportunity, and every one of you have. No matter how long you've written service, if you start doing what it takes to become the best, you put your situation into this formula. This is what you can have 10 years out. But I told that young girl sitting there at 24 years old in the whole class, you came in at $40,000. We told you what happens if you become average and make $75,000. Let's look what happens if you go from $40,000 to making $100,000. That's an increase where we've more than doubled your income, and you now have an extra $60,000 a year. And since we've established, again, repeating myself, that you made it fine and well, you made your rent, car payment, fed your kids at $40,000, here's what I want you to do with that extra $60,000 you've got every year. I want you to take half of it, $30,000. You just got a raise, $30,000. Spend it any way you want. For the next 10 years, take that $30,000 every year, spend it any way you want. Get a bigger house, nicer car, bigger vacations, new furniture, better colleges for your kids, whatever you want to do. That's $30,000 you get to spend. The other $30,000, we're going to put it in the bank every year for 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, that $300,000 you put in the bank, if you have a great accountant, it should have doubled and be $600,000. And just like before, I asked the lady, young girl sitting there, I said, you're 24, 10 years from now you'll be 34. How many 34-year-olds do you know right now that over the last 10 years had an extra $30,000 to spend any way they wanted and have $600,000 sitting in the bank clear and free? How many do you know that way? And the room went silent, as it always does. And again, the guy who's 45 said, you know, not only did I not know anybody that had $350,000, I sure as hell, his words, don't know anybody that's got over $500,000 sitting in the bank clear and free. But that's the opportunity you have. That's the benefit of becoming a service advisor. And again, this isn't just for new people coming in. If you're in the job right now and you're making 60, you go up to 100,000. Do the math. Take half of it, the extra money you're making, put it in the bank, take the other half and spend it any way you want. These are the benefits of being a great service advisor. And this is the reason I get on here week after week after week and in every workshop and on my online training and the trainers that go in and do the live training on the service drives. This is the reason we preach. Maximize the opportunity. It's just not today's paycheck that we're talking about. It's not just this week's, this month's, this year's we're talking about. We're talking about a career here where 10 years from now, let alone 20, 30 years from now, if you just get into this, what you can have and create by being a service advisor. You don't need any formal education. You can walk right out of high school, train yourself to maximize the opportunity, no college needed, and do this job. You can walk from any area of life onto a service drive, be disciplined and maximize the opportunity, use the right techniques, word tracks, and processes. You can have an unbelievable life and lifestyle that most people only dream about and nearly everybody will envy you for having. That's why I get so passionate and excited about this, because I want every one of you watching and listening to this to experience this. And I'll tell you what, that young lady walked out of that room that day, this is no kidding, walked out of that room because we were doing a series of workshops. It was a private workshop. And over the next 3 days, I've got the text, I'll show it to anybody. She went from writing 1.4 to 2.1. The next 2 days she wrote service, she went up to 2.1. The average was 2 days. And she wrote me a text and she said, I'll never look back. And at 2.1, I know I'm scratching the surface. I'm at a Chevy store and I'm going to 2.9, just like you said I could, because I'm going to be one of those people that make $100,000 a year. And I'm going to be one of those 34-year-olds that have $600,000 plus sitting in the bank. And you know, I text back and told her, I think you're right. Hey, my name's Jeff Cowan. That's my message for today. I'm sure that you enjoyed it. I'll be back next week with another message I know you're going to love, so make sure you come back. But between now and next week, when I come back with my next podcast, I want you to do yourself a favor. I want you to go out and make as many sales as you can. I want you to build as many relationships as you can, and I want you to be as successful as you can, because between now and next week, that is exactly what I am going to do. So with that, Jeff Cowan here, the guy that's trained more successful service advisors than anybody else on the planet, signing off. God bless you all. I will see you soon.